Okay, so welcome. As I said, we're going to go over what we've already covered for the majority of people. Just to recap, because it's been quite a while since anything's happened. So the status is we've still currently got the 3 live projects, but there's also the unified communications and the security qualifications that are likely to come into effect quite soon. So software developers, network engineers, and infrastructure technicians are the live ones.
Oh, sorry. Rebecca, you can hear us. I've just sent you an email to be a co-organiser for GoToWebinar.
Okay.
Is there, can you access your emails?
Yes, I'm just waiting for it to come through.
Okay, great. Hello, everybody. I've spoken to you both in one way or another by email or via telephone. I'm Claire Sago. I manage the Endpoint Assessment Service, and part of the management of that is getting assessments to you to assess and obtaining evidence from our customers for you to assess. I'm going to go through the evidence capturing system with you, but first I wanted to show you GoToWebinar, which is what we are using to go through and record the discussions. So all of the discussions that you will do as part of your assessment will be done remotely and video recorded. And that is how we will keep those as evidence of the discussion moving forward. It's much more real, it's much more focused on the digital first and where we're trying to get to with everything that we do with endpoint assessment.
So just to confirm then, sorry, are kind of the discussions now going to take place online as opposed to on-site visits? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right, okay.
John, can you give me control? Can you give me control? Sorry, I'm just trying to get the... I'm just going to stop and come away from this slide, and I'm going to share my screen with you. There you go, that's my desktop. Okay then, so we have a GoToWebinar license purely for the purpose of endpoint assessment, and as you can see, that screen very well. We are actively using GoToWebinar for endpoint assessments, and each candidate is on there with their enrolment number and the name of the candidate. When I've just said to Rebecca, I've invited her as a co-organiser, that is how you will be notified of the session and the session link. The system, as soon as I put you in as a co-organiser, the system will trigger that notification to you. We'll have agreed the times before that, but this is how you will be notified and get your access to the session. The centres will get access to the sessions as part of the booking process. So when we confirm the booking, we then allocate the individual link to the session to the individual candidate as part of the booking process. So I'm going to just start this webinar now. One of the APA team will always be there with you to start the session. And as a co-organiser, you too can get straight through to the session. Rebecca, has your email come yet?
Yes, it's here.
Good. So can you come on as a co-organiser for me, please?
Yep, I'm on my way now. Yes, it's launching GoToWebinar, and it's verifying the meeting ID, so I'm joining.
Okay, great. So the IEPA team and you guys will be sitting together for, we say to log on 15 minutes before the session so that you make sure you're organised, and make sure that there's no technical difficulties at our end. The apprentices will have to register for the session when they get their individual link, and I can clearly see on this screen who has and who hasn't registered for the session.
Yep, I've joined your session.
Okay. Now this might make a noise. So if you can see, you've been disconnected. Okay. Not sure whether you can see here, but we can see that there's 2 attendees on the right hand side of the screen. That's actually myself and Rebecca. And we're both in as staff. And we can quite happily talk to each other and nobody else can hear us through this session. As soon as the apprentice joins, will join as an attendee. There is a full set of instructions here for you that we'll get out to you so that you can see what's going on. But Rebecca, can I put you on the spot? Can you switch your webcam on, please? Have you got one? That's a bit close. Oh, it's a bit scary. Wrong one. In the GoToWebinar, Rebecca, please. Not your Skype web. Turn your Skype webcam off and join us in the GoToWebinar session, please. There we go. So if imagine I'm not presenting this desktop, so basically what we'll see is you and the apprentice, we will record this webcam activity. So you will have your discussion, it'll be very real, we can see what's going on in the room around them. The apprentices will all have identification, which you have to check first. So we know exactly who we're assessing is who we are supposed to be assessing. And then what you need to do when the attendee, unfortunately I haven't got any attendees who can join, when the attendee joins, their name will come up in this area here. You right click, like I said, you've got instructions, you right click on the attendee and you make them a presenter, which means they'll move up to be able to share their webcam with you. Once everybody's in place, the IEPA team will be dismissed by yourselves because we don't need to be there for the duration of the recording. And you can ask the candidate to switch their webcam on, so we'll look, I'll be the assessor and Rebecca will be the candidate, and this is what the recording will do. And then there's a little recording icon here, and you can start recording the session after you've introduced yourself to the apprentice. The cameras are up. Once you're ready to start the assessment, the apprentice will show their ID on the recording, so we've got a validation of the ID. You have your discussion, and then once you're finished, you can just stop the discussion, stop recording, and that's the recording's now stopped, and then the session can be closed. But like I say, there is instructions here that we will get out to you beforehand so that you can have a look, and if you want to have a practice, then we can arrange something closer to the actual assessments taking place. Has anybody got any questions for that?
No, that's
Just
fine to me.
what we were talking about was that the leads IPA would actually be there for the interviews when we were talking about physical interviews. So there is a facility, I presume, so that the league could.
Yes, you can sit in on it. Yeah, absolutely. So what it actually does is it's actually taking me to the recordings page. That's now my recording. We go and grab the link, the EPA team go and grab the link to this recording and pop it in the assessment system. So should Ken, the EQA, whoever wants to look at it, they've got the link and they can go in and watch that video in very real time. And it saves you taking copious amounts of notes. It would have to be stopped fully and restarted, so you'd end up with 2 recordings. That's the second time I've been asked that question today. I don't think you can pause a recording, but I'll look into it and I'll come back to you on that. If it can be, we'll update the instructions.
Yeah, because one of the issues is that the before you make final judgment, you might just need to reflect on certain points.
Exactly. So everybody, once we pop this link that's here in the EPA portal learning assistant, anybody with access to that candidate, so the assessor can go back in, you can go back in to reflect on that discussion. Yeah. You know, when you're sitting making assessment decisions, you're like, did he cover that? Did he say that? So that's another good reason to record it. Was somebody else asked a question?
I think.
Okay. Any more questions on that? Like I say, we can have a short session before you actually start using it, but it is really straightforward. The guys who are actively using it are using it no problem, and the recordings quality of the recordings is really good. And also they're stored outside of our system, so like I say, people can get access to them. Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine for me.
Okay, great.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question? Is apart from the video and the the dialogue being recorded, is there any sort of whiteboard or like like a chat?
Yeah, I mean you can share screens. It is a webinar, so a presentation could be done. A screen share could be done. We've used it quite effectively in the financial sector, where they're having a discussion about an investment job they've done, and the apprentice has been able to bring certain aspects up on the screen, and that'll all form part of the recording as well. Is that okay?
Sorry, I was going to say, I presume it's a similar facilities to what we have here with Skype, isn't it? That you can,
absolutely,
share the screen and.
This is a lot more reliable than Skype.
Right. Okay.
We do have a great deal of issues in London with Skype, so we've kind of parked that and actually paid for a license for Go2 for this. So it's much more reliable. Touch wood, we haven't had any problems so far with the quality of the recordings.
Okay, but it's got the same facilities. That's fine. Thank you. That's fine.
I've used Go2 for various meetings away from City Hills, and it is reliable. You can share screens, so it's actually adding validity to our assessment.
Okay.
Okay, then, so now we're moving on to the EPA portal, which is a version of City and Guilds Learning Assistant that we use to conduct all of our endpoint assessments across the board. We use it because we get to keep everything in one place. I don't know when you were first trained, but this probably wasn't in place then. And we were talking about keeping things on shared drives and things like that. But this is much more robust, secure way of me getting evidence from centres. Trevor, as you'll know, Trevor has access as a centre, and the assessors being able to carry out the assessments. So we haven't got documentation winging its way around the country in paper-based format, thank goodness. So,
Sorry, Jane, sorry, Claire. Just a quick query with regards to that and sort of e-portfolio, where centres are using e-portfolio.
yeah.
How is that likely to work? Because obviously it's coming to the point where as a centre I'm going to need to do it. Can we upload sort of a link in there to sort of the EV or the equivalent of the EV login?
No.
No,
as a centre you need to provide us the evidence, because the evidence is our responsibility as soon as you go in endpoint assessment. Zip files, any way you want to collect it, you as a centre just literally put it on this system, you don't link it anywhere. We do all of that. It's just literally somewhere for you to put your evidence so we can see it, so we can get it out for assessment.
Right, okay. Thank you, no problem.
So as a centre you get a much shorter set of instructions as to what to do than an assessor does. You'll be able to see it from both sides. Okay, so this is the Learning Assistant homepage. We don't use it traditionally, we literally use it as a pot to hold information and hold assessment decisions. When you first log in, you will be asked to, we set you up access, you'll be asked to accept the terms and conditions and set your own password. So set it to something memorable like we do. First things first, when you start the avatar, I'm looking up there, I just need to look at my screen. The avatar button is how you personalise your account. The first things you need to do as soon as you get access is to set up your notifications. Now, by setting that up, it means we can communicate with you through the messaging centre within the IEPA portal, but it'll actually trigger them to your email so that you can pick them up, so you don't have to keep going back into the portal all the time to see if there's something there. But it allows us to hold all of our communication in one place. So to do that, you pop your email address in here. And then you select how often you want to receive a message. So do you want to receive every message we send you, or do you want a daily recap, just a prompt to for you to go into the system? If you choose a daily recap, it'll come overnight and it'll be available to you the next morning. Once you've set all of your preferences, it's only really the message digest you need it for. You save the email settings, and that you set up for these messages from the system to trigger to your email address. The home page, like I say, it's not a traditional way of using Learning Assistant, so a lot of the functionality we don't use. But once we allocate you some learners, we do communicate with you and tell you who you're getting and when you're getting them. When you've got a few ways of searching for learners. You've got a course level. If you do say infrastructure and network, something like that, it's generally a good pairing, isn't it? Isn't that good? Yeah. If you're doing both, you could know you've got an infrastructure, a group of infrastructure or a group of networks. You can search by course level. You could search by company if you knew what employer they were coming from. You can say everybody you want to assess. There'll always be active learners in the system, but if you've had apprentices that have completed, you could change that drop down to look at a completed apprentice if you wanted to. Or the traditional way, you can search by the learner's name. Okay, so basically I put all my test learners in, and these are the learners that I used to go through with you guys. Basically, you will see your learner's name against the within the system, and they will be attached to a course. Now, the courses are set up various ways in various components, as you can see from your screen. When the learner is allocated, when the apprentice is allocated to you, this one, we will have added all of the evidence to the components of the endpoint assessment. So the centre pops it in there. As part of our check-in process, we will allocate the relevant documents to the gateway once they are received, and then once we get the assessment evidence in, we then allocate the evidence. So I'll just show you what that will look like when you get it. I just created a piece of dummy evidence. Please ask any questions as I go through, if you're not sure. So we will, like I say, we will put this evidence in place for you and put it where it's supposed to be. So when you get a sight of an apprentice in the system, they will come to you and they will have the components that need to be assessed. They will be blue when you receive them, as they are there. Okay, if a component is grey when you receive it, that means there's no evidence in it, and it may be a case, I know it's certainly not in its digital as it stands, but it may be a case that you as an assessor need to add some evidence to it, let's say an observation or something like that, so then you would trigger the component to go blue. We will send, you will not get anything to assess that hasn't gone through Gateway. The Gateway, however, we as a team cannot accept units. That's only an assessment function. So this Gateway component will come to you blue, but you don't need to check anything in it at all. We've already done that check. But what you do actually need to do is accept the unit and turn it green. So you click on the big red accept the unit button, and then it tells it saying that the gateway's been accepted as complete. You always have to put something in the feedback to close it down. So you just put complete in there, save that. And then close it. And the page will refresh, and it's now completed that unit. Okay. Now this is actually property maintenance, but this is going to look, it's quite similar for your guys because of the different assignments. So each of the assignments that are sent out for digital are also contained in here. But when we get the evidence back from the centre, we will want to know what assignment they've actually done for their project. So this will be one of these will be opened up for you, so you'll know which assignment or which route has gone down, and we will attach the project and the showcase portfolio evidence within this assessment component. I'm just waiting for this. So I just type it. Oh, look at that being kicked out, lovely. So there's some text on there, like I say, you will, there will be evidence in here for you, we will put it there, but if you ever need to upload anything yourself, you do it through the evidence wizard, which is this button here. And if it's a file, you use the upload evidence function. If you're creating evidence, so we use create evidence to add the link from the GoToWebinar in here. And if we don't need to create an observation in your case, but it is possible to do it within the system. So if you need to upload some evidence, you can either browse your files or you can drag and drop if you've got a file already saved. Which is new functionality, hot off the press this week, drag and drop. You can record some details in there if you want to, you don't have to because the system picks up the evidence, and you must give it an assessment type, so obviously it won't be the case for you, but if it is ever an observation, you take the observation, allocate it, and then for some reason that's not working, I'll have to have a look at that. And then you're able to attach it, the evidence into the system. And again, like before, you can choose the evidence because it wasn't cross-referencing. And again, that particular component is now set to blue, turn blue. So again, once you do your assessments, sorry, this isn't doing what I wanted to do. You can then accept the unit or return the unit, so we need to accept it to award to create the contact ID entry. So this is just accepting the individual component, accepting that project. Obviously you have a line to accept your showcase portfolio, and there'll be a line in there to put the professional discussion against as well within the component. Sorry. Then when we go back to the course folder, we can, that should have brought me a big red accept button up there, but it hasn't. So again, you would just do it like I did with the grade, the one that turned green, pop some evidence in. And accept the unit. should do. Sorry, I picked a really bad version of the test answers here. Let's see if I get it to behave. I mean, it behaves in the same way as it did when I closed the gateway down. You just assign the grade to the apprentice.
Can I just ask a question, Nicola? If you get an apprentice that hasn't achieved at that point, and you're giving them feedback, obviously you would expect a copy of the feedback to be stored on the system.
And this is where I need to get to with accepting this unit to show you where to attach your feedback to. Let me just use this as an example. When we accept the unit, we set the grade, pass fail distinction for this one. Even if it's a fail, you have to go through this process to close the unit down, or you select the pass or the distinction once you've done your holistic assessment of everything that's been presented. You assign the grade. You put something in the feedback box, so completed, grade pass, whatever. And then when you save it, you've then got the ability to attach your assessment decisions document and your feedback to the contact diary entry. And this is where we need the City and Guilds assessment forms attached to. We need them all to be kept in the same place so that we can obviously inform EQA organisations. We give them the same message so where they can find the assessment decisions. So you must create a contact diary entry first, but then you can upload a document, choose a file, and save that document. Now, depending on how your paperwork has been set out for your particular standards, you could have a City and Guilds document for the project, a City and Guilds document for the portfolio, and a City and Guilds document for the discussion. So if that's the case, if you have got 3 documents, we would need 3 documents within the contact diary. And when I say the contact diary, this is the contact diary. So we've got an absolute audit trail of everything that you've done, all of the documents you've attached are on this side, and obviously this is where Ken can go in and do his quality assurance checks on it. Has anybody got any questions? Because Rod, you are typing for a bit. Initial search, screening, company field, I guess I could put training provider's college name or employer or either. No, it would be the employer. The training provider is actually attached to the employer within the system. So it's the employer you would search the company for.
Okay, thank you.
Is that okay?
Yep, that's fine, as long as I know.
It's just one way of searching. Like I say, there's various ways, but generally because you'll only maybe get 5 or 6 learners at a time, you might as well just hit the search button, it'll bring them all up.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So once everything's complete and all of these bars at the top here are at 100%, you're all done, you can notify Ken that this particular apprentice has been assessed and he's ready for Ken to carry out his quality assurance checks. Again, there is a guide for you for this, step-by-step guide. I tried to, get everybody's learning style. So there is here in the corner the guides. So this is an updated guide. So as people are using the system and different standards are using the systems, little things that need tweaking all the time. So we do update the guide regularly with your feedback. And it'll always be up there and you'll always note a new one. So always access the guide from there in case anything changes. Also within your standards, I'll show you. I think the one that I'll have. I don't know whether you noticed when I was in that first learner, but within here we have all of your assessor materials. So here in assessor guidance, there is all of the guidance for carrying out your endpoint assessment. So as guidance changes, it'll be changed in here, so you'll always have the most up-to-date assessment materials each time you go in to do an assessment. So please don't store anything locally for assessment, always access it from here, because this will always be the up-to-date one. And then when you go into each of the components, yes, you will use it before interview because you'll be assessing the project and the portfolio before you conduct the interview. I just had to show you them the other way around because the system's actually being used at 3 o'clock, so they'll be logging on at 2:45. So in here in the resources section in the middle of the screen, this is also got guidance in there and documents in there as well. So there's a couple of places where you can get the most up-to-date documents to carry out your assessments. There's some other tabs down here. Again, we don't really use them. Probably one of the most useful one for you guys is to talk to each other is the forums tab. So when you're attached to a competence or a job role or a standard, you get access to a forum. So there's the infrastructure technician one. So that allows all of the infrastructure technician assessors to talk to each other, share best practice, etc. informally within the system. It's all threads and all very technical things like that. But if you just want an advice from another assessor or something, it's a really good place to get that and check the forums as well. And that is the IEPA portal. Anybody got any questions? Yes. Very good. Are we
giving feedback on why evidence is not acceptable, just recording your decision?
This goes back to the long-term query we've got.
Yeah, because I think we were saying at the end, we only give the feedback at the end, and it's achieved or not achieved.
That's to the candidate.
Yeah.
But if they fail, you've got to give them written feedback.
And we will give them written feedback. It's not for the assessor to do that. It's part of our role as a team. to get written feedback back to the apprentice on a fail.
Yeah.
So we record, what our reasoning is, but I wasn't sure who we are recording it for, because obviously it's not the learner or the employer who's reading this. It's for Ken to look at, isn't it?
Now, I would suggest, from my point of view, if I'm quality assurance, it would give me confidence in your decisions if I can see your reasoning.
Right, yeah, that's what I...
Yeah.
So it's not really for the learner to look at. The learner's not looking at it, the employer's not looking at it.
So if a learner fails, what we need to give back to the apprentice, the training provider, is the reason why they failed. So it could be something as simple as they need to cover points A, B, C and D, they were only able to cover point B.
Sure.
It's not like formative feedback, what they can do better next time. It's basically the reason why they failed.
Okay.
That we would give to them. So it's justification of that fail is what we need to give to the learner, and also what Ken would need to seek for quality assurance.
I mean, it'd be something like a statement such as the candidate has failed to achieve outcome T1.2, and a brief explanation of what's missing.
Yeah, so it's mapped to the requirements, isn't it? So what's missing from the standards and the requirements.
Yeah.
So it's good to see what they haven't achieved.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Anybody else? No? That's great, you're the best group yet.
Thank you,
That's great, thank you.
Okay, so we'll go back to the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so that covers where we're going to be storing the information and how we're going to be processing it. That'll be the main area for looking at to actually validate the decisions that have been made. So we need to make sure that our documentations, we're using the up-to-date documentation and we're keeping it in the right area. So, talking about documentation, the documentation that we have to support us are the occupational brief, the apprenticeship standard, and the assessment plan. These are all provided by the Tech Partnership, and from those we've come up with our actual units, etc., our qualifications. We need to be aware of these because Tech Partnership do change these periodically, and the awarding body sitting here will keep an eye on that and feedback any changes and how they impact on our assessment plans, etc. So, the Tech Partnership's approach to the digital apprenticeship is the on-program assessments. These are normally done before the gateway, or they will be done before the gateway, and they can be vendor qualifications or actual qualifications from the awarding bodies. And it depends on the actual qualification. For infrastructure technician, for instance, they can do all vendor qualifications, where on the network engineer, they need to do 2 vendor, and the other 3 come from the actual awarding body qualifications. We then go on to the gateway. I'll cover this process in more details, and then once the candidate's gone through the gateway, this is where we as endpoint assessors actively become involved in the process. We may get some queries from the team about vendor qualifications as they change. One of the gateway team may ask you for advice because we are the subject matter experts, so they do expect some interaction with the team about qualifications, etc. So the endpoint assessment team are responsible for checking the gateway declaration has been completed, booking the endpoint assessment, allocating the EPA to the actual interview, and providing the support for ourselves and the customers. Okay, anybody got any questions on that so far? Okay, so the role of the lead IEPA is to undertake endpoint assessment. So I'll be actually interviewing candidates as well as the EPAs. I'll be supporting you as individuals, so if you've got any issues, you can contact me and I will give you advice and guidance. And if necessary, I will escalate the problem. There is a process for dealing with any suspected malpractice. I will cover that slightly later on. So, we no longer have to complete a health and safety check. It's looking, if we go into the environment, it's just we give it a cursory check to make sure that it's safe for ourselves and the candidate, and then we actually conduct the endpoint assessment. To do this, there's a number of elements that are shown down below. So we review the employer's reference. That might be a source of information that you can use. It may throw up questions that you want to ask the candidate in the interview. Then review the summative portfolio of evidence. Again, you're looking to see the coverage of the outcomes. You're also looking to identify any areas that require questioning. Likewise, with the synoptic project, you review it, you then form your questions for the interview, you conduct the interview, and you then make your grading decisions. One thing that we brought up at the last session that I want to re-emphasize is you don't tell the candidate whether they've got a distinction, you just tell them that they passed. So all you tell them is that they passed, or if they have failed the qualification as such.
Can I just ask a quick question? I haven't got the slides on my screen at the moment. Can you see them at your end?
Let me just have a look, Rebecca, thank you. Can you see them now?
Nope.
No, not me.
I apologise, folks, I thought you could see the slide.
I thought it might have been just me because I participated in the webinar side of things, but then I messaged and I can see that Trevor and Suarez haven't got it either.
Yeah.
you see now?
Yeah,
So that's
that's
good.
good.
Yep, that's fine.
Super. Sorry about that.
Let's just. Okay, so this is the slide I was talking about. As you can see, there's the review of the employer's reference, review of the summative portfolio, then the review of the synoptic assessment. We conduct the interview, and after the interview, we make the holistic grading. No grading is awarded before the completion of the interview. So, the gateway and beyond. As individual endpoint assessors, we are responsible for recording the grading decisions and submitting them to the endpoint assessment team. That will be done as been discussed already through Learning Assistant. And we've got to provide written feedback to the apprentice that have not been successful. Again, be specific, identify the outcomes that haven't been achieved when we're giving them feedback. Malpractice, if you suspect malpractice at any point, you should send an email to the address that's on the screen, and they will contact you and get details from you. I've actually had this happen with another qualification, and it is actually quite a thorough process. They will investigate it, and they will get back to you with their findings. Everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
Yep, that's fine.
So the endpoint assessment packs, they, from what we've seen, will be on Learning Assistant, and these are our Bible. They contain the standards themselves, the roles and responsibilities, both of the endpoint assessment team and the actual assessors, and the centres, the roles within these centres and their procedures are also covered in that. One thing to note is we're actually working on these documentation to actually provide more examples of types of acceptable evidence. So it will contain more detail once that process is finished. So, for instance, where you look at the behaviours, etc., at the moment the columns for that are blank, but what you will have is guidance on the type of acceptable evidence for that. That's both from a centre's point of view and our point of view as an assessor. That's something we've actually come back from a centre that I've been working with. They said there's not enough guidance in there, so we're reacting to that. We're putting more guidance in, and it will benefit us as endpoint assessors as well. It will give us a better idea of what we're actually expecting. It will contain the grading criteria and the documentation required to support the endpoint assessment process. There is one for each of the standards, so there'll be one for the network engineer, one for the infrastructure technician, and one for the software developer at the moment. The others will be forthcoming as they're developed.
Just a quick question. I mean, we received some of the documents when we met in, was it May or June?
Yeah.
Has that been updated? Is there a later version, or is that?
They're in the process of being updated at this point in time.
They are, and I did actually contact the the team that work on these, and so as soon as they're updated, can they be added to the website? So if you remember in that training, we had the website for the leads and the independent endpoint assessors. It'll be on there as well, and digital.
Okay, thank you.
So you'll be able to get the packs there, and then also the guidance and learning assistant too.
Sure.
Okay, so to achieve a pass, the apprentice must meet all of the requirements for the technical competencies, the technical knowledge and understanding, and the underpinning skills, knowledge and behaviours. This is the main bulk of the work that we're doing at the moment, is updating these. The technical competence have always been there because that's fairly straightforward. It will give you an example of the evidence and then specify specific types such as planning documentation, reviews, etc., things like that. The areas we're developing on that are the technical knowledge and understanding and the underpinning skills, knowledge and behaviour. So you will see an improved document coming out shortly. Now, what we got, when we're looking at the distinction grades, the competence has got to be well above average in all three of these areas to actually award a distinction. Not just in one area, such as technical competence, it's got to be in all three areas. So this is a breakdown of the grading. The pass, we look at what they are doing, how they are doing it, and with whom. When we're talking about with whom, are they working with the managing director of the company, or are they just working with an administrator to rectify the fault? So it's the level of the person that they're working with. The merit focuses on the what and the how. So if they only get the what and the how, so what they're doing is very good, and the how they're doing it is very good, they get a merit. Likewise, if the what and with whom are at a high level, they get a merit. Then if all three of the areas, the what, the how, and with whom, are at a high level, they would then get a distinction. So as I said, when we give the distinction, it's all three of the competencies. We okay with that, folks?
Yeah, that's clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did go over it in quite depth last time, so.
There's additional guidance as well in the packs, isn't there, about what's the expected level
Yes,
as well, so that gives some more guidance as well in terms of the difference between the merit and distinction.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, there's quite a lot of changes been made.
Yeah.
So, when we come to conducting the interview, I took the videos out because we haven't got as long this time. So, what we're trying to do, and again, this is probably in a way going to be in some ways easier, in some ways more difficult because we're doing it through video conferencing. Cultivate a relaxed atmosphere. So try and put the candidate at ease. Start off the interview with a question like, okay, can you explain your role within the company? Something fairly open to try and get them settled down. Ensure that your body language is professional. Okay. Now, in the video conferencing, that's going to be slightly more complex to do. But we've got to watch what we do. Body language is very powerful. Try not to be negative. Try to be positive when you're talking to the individual. We talked about non-threatening and emotional topics. Do try and use open-ended questions, such as, can you explain how you did this? If you've got to use a closed question, then follow it up with an open question to give the candidate a chance to actually explore their answers. They can expand their answers. So for instance, have you installed a printer? Yes. How did you do that? Okay, give them the chance to provide you with the evidence. And probably the most important, you're not there to prove that the apprentice is wrong. Don't enter into arguments. If there's a topic that's becoming very heated, move on from it straight away. Don't get confrontational. And just some techniques to get people talking. Tell me about how you install. Did you ever do this? How did you feel when you did this? Those are some open-ended questions that tend to put people at ease when you're interviewing them. Okay, so the sampling and reporting on assessment activities. That's my role as a lead. As we already discussed, there's a facility for me to come in live on the go-to meetings. Where I do come in live onto a go-to meeting, it's not to ask any questions of the candidate at all. It is just to observe you undertaking the interview. Okay, so I'm not going to, if I think there's gaps in the evidence, I will not ask questions. I may have a discussion with you subsequently to the interview. I will look at the feedback that you give to the apprentices, and I will actually review the CPD that you're undertaking to remain occupational competent. Any questions on that, folks?
Nope, looks straightforward enough.
Yeah. Good. There we go. Any questions?
Yeah, I had a quick question again about the documentation. It's on this website. In the tech partnership documents, I think I downloaded some from the City and Guilds sort of main website. Is that where I should go, or is it on another website?
As an endpoint assessor, your guidelines at the moment are the actual the City and Guilds documentation.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, that is what you work to.
Right.
It is nice to get the tech partnership information, and I go on quite regularly and update it myself, just keep myself in the loop. But as far as the assessment process is concerned, everything you need is in the end assessment pack.
Right, okay, that makes it easier then. Yeah, I was looking at two
keeping
documents.
yourself up to date with changes in the standards, etc. It's a nicety, but you will still be, even if there is changes until the documentation is updated to reflect those changes, we will be assessing to the documentation.
Right, that's fine. Sorry, the other question, I might as well get mine in quick. You know, the employer reference and the sort of output from the synoptic projects, are they also going to be on Learning Assistant or separate?
Yes, they will, Claire's just, the synoptic assessment will, and Claire was saying that the endpoint documentation's on there, the gateway documentation. So that will include the employer's reference.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions at all?
Are you happy, Trevor?
Yep, none from me, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. What we'll do as a follow-up, we have recorded this, so hopefully it's been a successful recording. We can share this with you. We'll also send you a copy of the slides from today. We've got the LA guidance as well, and the GoToWebinar instructions. And we'll add the website link as well, just as a reminder to where the independent endpoint assessor details are on the website. So we'll email all of that out to you as well.
Okay, thank you.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Rebecca, did you have anything to add at all?
No, not at all. Thank you, Ken, for that refresher. It does seem quite a while ago since we went through all that detail, doesn't it? So it's nice to just recap, ready for any endpoint assessments that are going to come in shortly. So hopefully you've both found that worthwhile this afternoon.
Yep,
Yeah, very
absolutely.
useful.
Yep, that's great.
Okay, super. Well, thank you very much. And we'll close there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.